describing the reality, and that makes a lot of sense because many of the systems, especially in larger companies, have been written decades ago. 20 years is not that bad of a number, right? So we're talking about legacy. We're talking about legacy applications. Programmers who, if we're lucky, they maintain that code from 50 years ago. If we're less lucky, right, they handed it off to someone else, and there are pieces of code, scary news there, right? Pieces of code that no one knows how it works, right? They were lucky to kind of go over year 2000. Remember those times, right? To keep operations going at the same time, right? The pressure from customers, from competitors, from pandemic challenges, right? You're basically gonna go out of business unless you're very digital this way, right? So where do you think this company is gonna make that leap in digital transformation, but basically becoming a modern enterprise?
Well, we know that those systems existed because the pandemic exposed the unemployment systems that are still running on legacy platforms and legacy code. But, I think that we tend to think of private enterprises as being, really more advanced. But shockingly, they are not. Right? So, now we come to, when do we think that companies are going to embrace, the panacea systems that are AI and ML and blockchain? And, I don't want to be classified as negative Norman, right? When people look at this podcast and go, my goodness, this guy is a dinosaur and he's just poo-pooing all this technology, and we should never hire him because, he just doesn't get it. I think, these technologies have a tremendous potential to advance companies through, breakthrough operational evolutions. I view technology as a tool to get a business process done. Right. So, and I've got some notes here, so I'm going to refer to them. If we look at data analysis, kind of like the phases for data analysis are descriptive, where we look in hindsight, predictive, where we say what is likely to occur, but we have to look at that, as like, what is the accuracy, right? Predictive analysis is, well, I think that something is likely to occur, but of course we want it to be with a really good amount of accuracy, right? I think that that's likely to occur, but I only think it's gonna, the likelihood is 20%. Well, is that valuable or not, right? And then prescriptive analytics tells us what we should do. And again, we want it to be really, really accurate, because if software is going to tell us what to do, we want it to be spot on good, right? So the ability to, to get there, especially for something like procurement, would be great, right? I mean, traditionally we've relied on min-max, but if we can narrow this down and involve good forecasts and whatnot, and kind of predict consumer behavior, I mean, the potential for this is just terrific. But companies are struggling to get master data management smooth, not just internally between departments, but externally between themselves and their customers, and between themselves partners, and their downstream suppliers.
Yep.
So, what makes us think that we could just put AI, and then ML on top of that? Because, I refer back to the fact that, that's why HAL 9000 went cuckoo bananas in 2001, A Space Odyssey. Right? The foundational technology, the foundational data has got to be basically perfect.
Yep, garbage in, garbage out. You know that industry, of course, talk. Yeah.
Right. So, from a supply chain trend standpoint,
Mhm.
I think that I almost see, the gap of the digital divide, somewhat growing.
It's not
Because
closing, it's growing. Interesting.
right, I almost don't see that it's closing. I see somewhat, sometimes that, that it's growing. When I read articles about ERP EDI integration, where companies see, where companies were like, wow, this is so revolutionary.
Mhm.
I'm like, well, I was doing that back in 1993 when I started with supply chain vendor compliance. It's like, this shouldn't be a this should not be a revelation. This is a necessity when you get to the point to where you're keying in too many orders into your ERP system. But I think companies today are still like, wow, we've invented, the wheel or the light bulb. Those things have been around for a while. This should just be part of your plan.